So this is just a tutorial of how I created this tapestry using free resources. So we're going to start with picking out an image that you would like to knit. In this case, the next one I want to do is a picture of the Shuri Castle fire that happened here in Okinawa last year. And we'll see if we can find a picture that I think will work well for knitting. There was one really specific picture, I think this is the one, that I wanted to see if I could create into a piece of knitting. I thought that with lots of black and like pretty straight lines, that maybe I'd be able to do this as mostly intarsia, so mostly plain knitting black, some stranded color work through this section here, and then hopefully some intarsia into the flames. We'll see. I've never done anything quite this big before, so let's save this image wherever we want to save it. Hey, look at that. Okay. And now we're going to go over to STITCHFIDDLE. No paid promotion or anything here. This is just a chart service that I use all the time. So STITCHFIDDLE is free up to a certain point. So there are some things, you can see I've been playing around with this a little bit. Some things you can do for free and some things that you will have to pay more for. And there are times when I have bought the paid subscription service, and then I usually just buy a month at a time as I need it and then let it lapse. So I just clicked on create a new chart. It's going to ask you what sort of a craft you're doing because it does the charts. Sometimes the grid is different for knitting versus cross stitch. Cross stitch tends to be perfect squares, whereas knitting are more rectangles. I hope that makes sense. What kind of project? So lace, cables, brioche. In the end, this really doesn't matter much. It preloads in colors instead of like lace symbols for the chart. So we're going to do colors, and we're going to create it from a picture. So you can go ahead and pick your picture to go in there. There's mine. All right, so it preloads some things in here, and as you can see, this is a pretty grainy looking picture at this point. And as I talked about earlier in the episode, we're looking for pixels here. So the only way to fix pixels is larger size or smaller smaller gauge. So first we can look at size. This asks you specifically for a stitch count, but it has a calculator that'll help you. So what you can do is you can pick your swatch and your finished object size, and it'll fill in the rest. So for example, I did a 4" by 4" swatch. I actually did a really much larger swatch, but I'm taking this down because I have the gauge already calculated out. My gauge ended up being 27 stitches and 28 rows, and that might sound a little weird that they're so close in regular knitting, plain knitting, but in stranded color work, a lot of times you'll see your row and stitch count will get a lot closer than they normally are. Next thing I want to do is size, and I pre-measured a frame I already own that I would like this to fit. So now we have our total stitch count. 39,600 stitches in this particular item. And we're going to create the chart. So for whatever reason, it always seems to, you plug all that information in, and then you have to come back and hit this, hit these buttons one more time for I want knitting and I want from a picture. All right, so now we have the chart with the right number of pixels, and you can still see it's pretty rough. Like it's not a super pleasing thing to look at. So now we're going to start playing with colors. So right now they have 10 colors. You can see that right here. As you add more colors, this will get more sharp and defined. Now, if I want it really nice, we could put 30 colors in, and it's looking closer to what the photograph looked like. But 30 colors is a lot of colors to manage, and I want to just kind of keep bringing this down until I hit a point where I find the picture manageable. Like 25, it looks kind of similar. Like if you really look at it, it looks not too much different from 30. So let's keep taking it down and see if we can reach a point where we don't like the way it looks. And you can see each time I bring this down, these flames especially start to separate, the colors start to separate. And I like it here, but I don't like it as much in this section. I think it looks a little bit weird. Let's see, we'll keep bringing it down. I don't hate that. Now I feel like it's starting to look a little bit weird. So I think probably 11 colors is going to be the lowest end I want to do for this. I think 13 looks pretty reasonable, and so does 14. I actually don't like the way it looks once you hit 15 and above. So yeah, I think we might stick to something like 13 or 14 colors. Yeah, so that would be my plan for this project. Now I know that is a lot of colors. This is an advanced thing that I'm going to try to undertake and manage, but I think we might be able to manage this. I'm a little concerned right here along this edge. Taking the colors out, you kind of lose what this is, and you just get like a black spot. So let's take another look at this spot. Oh yeah, 15, you can see it better. $30 is just really unreasonable though. There's no way I'm going to do 30 colors. Maybe. So that's something I could kind of look at it in the final chart, is I could try to put in some highlight right here. My cat Stoli says hello. So let's take this down to a more reasonable number of colors. Yeah. All right, well, for video's sake today, we'll bring it back up because that's fun. Okay, so you've picked the number of colors you want, you're happy with the overall image, you've got your size and gauge all put in, you're going to hit Save Chart. And what's going to happen is it's going to open the chart, which of course is going to be horribly large. This is 240 by 165 stitches. And as you can imagine, it's kind of hard to read this thing. So my approach to it was that when I create the chart, I print it in manageable pages, which I will show you later. But one of the first things I want to do is make the chart a little bit easier to read. So for example, right now we're looking at a spot where it can be a little bit tricky to tell the difference between some of these colors because they're close. So you're like, is this light orange or medium orange? Is this the lighter white or lighter yellow or the medium yellow? So you can actually go in and plug in some symbols here. So what I want to do is edit the chart. And now you can see all the colors that are being used and just how close together they are. Although I admit it would be really fun to go into like a Knitpicks palette and just start plugging in colors for these. Like I can already, some of them, like this will be the old gold color and this will be the flax color. Anyway, so to make these a little bit more easy to distinguish, we can add symbols to them. So you're going to change your color, and especially here, look, this is like 6 colors of orange that almost look identical to me. So you can throw in a new symbol if you didn't see that. That's this little symbol icon right here. And up at the top, you can select symbol, and there are tons of different symbols you can use in different categories. So we'll start with just basic knit stitches. And here you go, sure, we can throw those in. So now we know all of those are these stitches. It's kind of a bit like a cross stitch, where you just start throwing in extra symbols to make the charts easier to read. There's no rhyme or reason to what I'm doing right now. This is really just for my own aesthetic and looking at it and making it easier to read. But you can see how it'll be a lot easier to pick out which colors are which. So I hope this is helpful. So anyway, now you're going to save. You'll save and then you'll download your finished object. And this is where you'll really see some of the details that are paid for things. So if you have paid for a subscription, you'll have the options for all these different versions. For these large documents, I actually like to do the printable PDF. You can edit grid lines on the paid services. I don't have the paid, so that's why it's asking me for that. And you can edit a bunch of other things with the paid services. So let's download this, and then I will show you how I approach knitting something this large. All right, so here's our printable PDF. As you can tell, it's pages. We have pages upon pages upon pages. There's obviously a lot of plain darkness in here. But what I will do is I will cast on the number of stitches for the row, which in this case is, let's see where we're at, 200, I think, 240. Yes, so we have 240 stitches. So I will cast on my cast on row all in black in 240 stitches, and I will place a stitch marker to indicate the end of each page. So here we have 40 stitches, so I will knit my 40 stitches, place a stitch marker, and then continue on. And that way you just go row by row, page by page. Once you have completed your row, I will use the highlight function in my PDF, which I am inside my browser right now, so I can't show that to you, but I'll select highlight and I will just highlight that I have finished that row as a way of keeping track of it. So this is a large project. You could print the pages and follow along with something like highlighter tape, but I just do these in front of my computer. These are definitely larger projects that need my concentration and energy. And let me see if I can show you a row. So you can see it's manageable. Again, for something like this, I'm either gonna try to intarsia it, but of course if you're doing intarsia, you have to be working in the flat, which isn't really something I wanna do. Or I'll do stranded color work with a jacquard ladder back technique to help catch all those floats. And then for some of the smaller sections, I'll just probably put a stitch marker or something on some of the stitches, some of the colors that aren't used very often, and just come back with a needle and thread and do a duplicate stitch in that color. So let's say, for example, yeah, like right here, this row, we've got one single stitch of this color. I'm not going to carry this color all the way across the row for that one stitch. So what I'll do is I'll knit it in a similar color, one of the nearby colors, and I'll mark it with a locking stitch marker or something like that. And I'll come back later and I will just sew that stitch in place using duplicate stitch. And I think that is going to be my plan for approaching this project. I'm probably going to fiddle with these charts more than I have done on this video, but I just wanted to show it to you, and I hope you find this educational. Let me know in the comments if this was helpful for you and if you would like to know more about this process.